Thanks, Acting Speaker. And I rise to contribute to the Gambling Legislation Amendment Pre-Commitment and Carded Play Bill 2024. And of course, this bill just continues the work of the Allan Labor Government in reducing gambling harm and while ensuring that the community clubs and the RSLs and the hospitality venues that have been referred to do remain an important part of the Victorian community. I firstly want to mention that it's a bit disappointing that the opposition are voting against this bill, and when it fundamentally is all about reducing harm of gambling addiction and money laundering. And I'll make reference to the recent amendment from the member that moved that. And of course, one of the reasons for that recent amendment was the member for Gippsland South who moved it, was about providing more evidence. And as the member for Eureka raised in her contribution, there's plenty of evidence from other countries that have introduced carded play, such as Sweden and Norway, and that evidence has been gathered since I think it was the early 2009, I think she referred to. So there is plenty of evidence from other countries. But also, again, the member for Eureka in her contribution attested to the gambling harm that doesn't just affect the person who gambles, but also the loved ones and the families in total. And I commend the member for Eureka for her fantastic contribution, and she's done that against all gambling issues that have been raised in this House, and she's consistent on that, and well done to her. Of course, the most recent study of Victorian gamblers found that 29% of people who played poker machines experienced some form of harm, with a record $3.06 billion lost on poker machines in 2023-2024. So this bill will amend the Gambling Regulation Act of 2003 and the Casino Control Act of 1991 to implement the use of mandatory carded play and pre-commitment on electronic gaming machines across the state. It means that gaming machine players will be required to use a player card, which only they will have access to, and in order to use those electronic gaming machines. Of course, the card will give people access to information about their gambling habits, and I know it's been raised about the privacy of individuals, but this, again, the fundamental issue in regard to this bill is trying to protect people from gambling addiction. It allows those people to set limits on how much they are willing to lose, known as the pre-commitment. Of course, account-based play provides more and real-time information to patrons, helping them to take control of their own decisions. And account-based play and identity requirements also help prevent criminals from using venues and machines to launder money. And that comes as a result of the Royal Commission into the casino operator and licence carded play was implemented at Crown Casino from December last year in an Australian first to introduce a voluntary statewide carded play and pre-commitment scheme for gaming machines. And this bill will ensure this scheme is implemented at venues across all of the state. It also implements a minimum 3-second spin time on pokie machines. Doesn't sound like a lot, does it? But of course, that's a 40% increase on the current minimum spin time of 2.14 seconds. I can quite grasp that myself. I have played pokies before, but I didn't realise it was only 2.14 seconds in between spins. I know sometimes when you're standing in front of a machine, you're really G'ing it up to try and spin faster, but especially if you think you're on a roll where you've got a few collects and then all of a sudden it's all gone. Anyway, the increase in spin time reduces the chances of risky behaviour, slowing down the rate at which a potential criminal could launder some money. Of course, these reforms are about putting the power back into the consumer's hands and supporting them to gamble within their limits. And that is really important. Much like in all of my previous contributions to the many gambling amendments this government has made to reduce gambling harm to Victorians. And I will admit that I've been a gambler and still am a gambler. As I say, I always have been, and I'm sure I will continue to be a gambler into the future, and I gamble on everything, even flies crawling up the wall. Look, for me, and I do it within my limits, I think I do. My wife probably wouldn't think that, but I use it as a bit of an entertainment for me. It's a bit of a challenge. I'm sure other people have said the same, but I'm certainly not an addict, but I do enjoy it at times. I'll try everything. I don't play the pokies very often, and it's probably only the times when I'm desperate for a drink at night and I've got nowhere else to go. I'll go to a pokies venue if there's one close by, but only because they've got a bar rather than the gaming machines. So I prefer drinking rather than gambling, but I don't think I'm addicted to it, but you never know. You give it a try. So I might have two addictions that I'm not aware of, but I'm working on it, so we'll see how we go. Someone said before about the support services. Maybe I'll check them out too. But anyway, not to worry. Of course, gambling is very common amongst the Australian community, with 73% of Australian adults partaking in some sort of gambling within the last 12 months, whether it's scratchies, race betting, pokies, any other form of gambling. And of course, we have less than 1% of the world's population, yet we have 18% of the world's poker machines, which is interesting stats, and probably a good reason of why so many people lose so much money. It's estimated about 330,000 Victorians experience harm as a result of gambling each year, costing Victoria around $7 billion annually and leading to significant financial distress, mental health concerns, and of course relationship issues. And in a 2023 report from Federation University and Suicide Prevention Australia, it was found that there were at least 184 suicides directly related to gambling, and 17 suicides by those affected by someone else's gambling. And of course, these numbers don't include suicide attempts due to gambling addiction. So, when you look at those numbers, those tragic numbers of people taking their own lives or attempting to take their own lives, it's really difficult to quantify the cost to our community of these tragedies. And look, in my electorate, there are 4 main gambling dens: Max Hotel, the Golden Fleece Hotel, the Melton Country Club and the Melton Entertainment Park. And of course, as I said before, these are facilities that provide local jobs, support local clubs, support local community groups, but there is an element of it that unfortunately we see people that go to these facilities that have a gambling addiction. So we've got to try and find the balance here. These locations are where too many members of our communities suffer at times. And since the last time I updated the House on the statistics of gambling in the Melton LGA 2 years ago, things have worsened. In the last 2 years, the amount of money spent on pokies in the Melton LGA has increased by over 40% to almost $87 million per year. And the Melton LGA has gone from the 13th to the 10th in the state in terms of the highest pokies expenditure in the state. And that is despite still having the same number of poker machines in my part of the electorate or the local government area as we did 2 years ago. So we've, as I say, it's a massive increase of gambling losses in the Melton local government area. So all new electronic gaming machines will be required to have a spin rate longer than 3 seconds. As I said, doesn't sound like a lot, but it's a great increase on the 2.1 form, which is really just sucking money out of people's pockets. Of course, everyone would have got the email from Martin Thomas, the CEO of the Alliance for Gambling Reform, stating that the Alliance strongly supports and applauds Victoria's decision to support mandatory carded play with pre-commitment, describing the changes in this bill as sensible measures to limit the financial loss, in turn reduce the significant harms to families, employers and the impacts on the general well-being and health of our community. These are important. This is an important bill and important reforms, and it just adds to other things that the Allan Labor Government has introduced, such as the establishment of the VGCC Commission, Australia's strongest gambling regulator, and also the mandatory carded play for pokies at Crown Casino, mandatory closure periods. This is an important bill and I commend it to the House.